Hello and welcome to episode 2 of Living Value, a podcast about living your best life and making the world a better place by living in a way that brings value to yourself and others. I'm Topher Field, and on this podcast I interview people who I believe are true examples of living value. People who create value in 3 key areas: in business and finances, in relationships and community, and in the area of ideas. If you're enjoying what I do with this podcast, then please head to topherfield.locals.com and join my community of supporters. Locals.com is like a Patreon, but without the political correctness and the threats of deplatforming. And that's where you'll find a community of people who make this podcast and everything else that I do on my blog and in my videos possible. So check it out at topherfield.locals.com. That's topherfield.locals.com. And become a supporter so that I can keep making this content, which hopefully you are getting a lot of value from. Today's guest is Karen Alsop, an incredible multi-award winning artist. She's known around the world for her work in photography and Photoshop and the way that she puts those two skills together. She has successfully turned her art into a business and can genuinely say that her art is changing lives and building better communities. And to top it all off, she has contributed to improvements in ideas and technology in her field. She is truly an example of living value. You've probably never heard of her, but if you follow the links we give you during the podcast and you see some of her incredible work, I promise you, you will never forget it. So, without further ado, Karen Alsop, thank you so much. I really appreciate you making time for this podcast. I'm really looking forward to this chat, and I'm a little bit concerned that we have too much to talk about in the time that we have. So I really want to dive in, but I can't help myself. I do have to ask, what is it like living with the name Karen right now, given all the nonsense that is going on around that name?
Oh, it's really irritating, I must say. Look, I am at times a little bit of a Karen though. So for me, I'm a nice Karen, but I do think that customer service and good customer service is important. So I will speak up if something goes wrong, and quite a few things have gone wrong, in my life in the last few weeks with deliveries and things like that. So,
right.
I have to sort of stop myself because I feel like I'll just be labelled as a Karen if I complain at all.
Yes, very frustrating. But look, moving on from that, that's not the object of the podcast. Now, for those who don't know, you are a sensational photographer, but you've paired that as well with just incredible Photoshop abilities, and then paired that with a business model where people actually come to you for those services combined, which makes you an incredibly unique artist, both because of the work that you do, but also because of the fact that you're actually at least somewhat successful in business. This is a slightly unusual combination. But before we get to what you do now, I want to kind of rewind and go right back. Obviously, you weren't always a photographer. You weren't born with a camera in your hand. What was it that brought you into photography? And photography is a huge area. You can go into so many different directions. Did you already know going in what niche of photography you wanted to move into, or did you just kind of like photography?
I really loved photography from quite a young age. My grandfather was in the camera club. My nana was as well, but he was very involved. He was winning awards. And when I was around 15, 16, he got me really interested, helped me set up a darkroom. I tried all sorts of different photography, and I sort of went on to study that alongside teaching and music. So I had this whole plan as I was in secondary school to become a music teacher, primary music teacher, and to also run a business on the side that incorporated graphic design and photography. And so I sort of pursued that, knowing that too long term that I wanted to gradually cut down on the teaching at the school and build up the business. So I had the plan pretty early on, and I pursued that. And, after 7 years of teaching primary music, I went full-time in my photography business, which was primarily portrait and wedding at that time.
That is an astonishingly level-headed set of life goals for a young person. My life goals did not look anything like as reasonable as what you've just articulated. Tell me about the very first paying client Did some people have confidence and they
Mm.
know that they can do it. Other people, it's terrifying. What was it like for you, and where did that client come from?
Oh, that's going back a really long way. I
Oh,
was,
now you're not that old. You're
oh,
not that old.
we're talking 20 years though. So I mean, I vaguely remember a few things. Probably the one that I can explain maybe is when we went into wedding photography. So I'd been doing graphic design for bed and breakfast brochures for a while, but just going into that photography business full time. And so my first wedding shoot was my cousin's, and
Mm.
I had a film camera. So the reason that I went into graphic design to start with, I think, was having film camera. It just didn't seem like I could do a lot with photography at that time. But then the digital SLR came out, and myself and my husband Stuart, we shot the wedding, and the day that camera came out was the day before that wedding. So we took the
Wow.
film camera, we took the digital SLR that we just picked up, and basically shot the whole wedding with the digital SLR, and it was great. It worked out really well. It was a bit of a stress to start off with shooting a wedding, but I enjoyed it. So we
Well,
sort of followed through with that
uh,
after.
in a
Yeah.
past life, I have spent time videoing weddings, and
Yes.
I know as a videographer or as a photographer, doing weddings is incredibly stressful. Doing your first wedding, even more so. Doing your first wedding with a camera that you got your hands on the day before, that is a whole new technology, which, in your personal experience was unproven at that point in time, would have to be probably the most stressful way that you could possibly shoot a wedding. So well done. That is the way to fly by the seat of your pants. All right, so fast
Yeah.
forward a little bit, because you're not known just for photography now. You are really known for the synergy that you bring between your photography and then just the incredible Photoshop work that you do
Yep.
to
Yep.
combine multiple different photographs and create these insane scenes. And I'll talk a bit more about that later on. But first, I want to hear, how did that journey happen? How did you go from I'm a photographer to now being the artist that we see today?
Well, I'd always loved digital art and graphic design, and I could never draw. So this is my form of art, but I'd never really taken it seriously. And it actually wasn't until we had kids.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're talking, Jaslin's 9 now, Ash's 7. So a number of years ago, we had kids, and shooting weddings, because that was our primary focus, became much, much more difficult.
Yeah, that's not on.
So it was a bit of a journey of actually, okay, what can I find now that I can be passionate about, that I can do creatively, that I can work around family life. And so kind of took a bit of a journey around different types of photography and kind of landed on the digital art. And then, it just went from testing it out to starting to win awards and realizing that this was the thing that I wanted to throw myself into.
Well, it is interesting to think that you really are known for this now, and you're a multi-award winner. You are, I think it's fair to say that your name within industry circles, your name is known by other industry professionals literally right around the world. And it's interesting to think that you became Karen Alsop, this amazing artist, almost out of necessity. You were kind of casting, from what you just said, you were kind of casting around like, oh, crap, I can't keep doing what I'm doing. What am I going to do now? And isn't it funny how sometimes fate, or whatever you want to call it, can lead us in that way?
It's so true. I'm so thankful that I took this direction, that I took the leap, because I'm so in love with what I do, and every aspect of it. But I wouldn't say that I didn't like what I did before that either. So I think always in life I've tried to find things that I can be passionate about, that I can actually love doing. And from that, it just grows and changes over the years. But yeah, it's pretty amazing. Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about the spectrum of what you do now, because you've kind of got niches and sub brands within what you do. You also do education as well, because other people, your work is so well known that other people actually want to learn from you how you've done what you do. So can you just cast for us a bit of a picture of what it is that you're involved in today? Bring us up to the present.
Yeah. Well, education, I guess I'll start with that, because education, as you sort of heard earlier, I was a teacher, and so that's always been a big part of what I wanted to continue to offer. And so, but that comes out of, as you said, people knowing my work. So what I do in story art is create images made up of multiple photos that I take. So I try and take all of the different elements, blend them together to tell a story in one photo. And that is something that I can do for so many different types of clients. So I've got commercial clients, domestic clients, my work with the Heart Project, which I'm sure we'll go into a bit more. And
definitely.
All these different types of clientele. But what I do and how I do it has a real kind of, I guess, formula to it. And so it's really awesome to be able to have that niche and to be able to say, this is what I do. If you need a normal photographer, I've got the right person for you, but it's not me. And to be able to then do that in a number of different ways for different people. So yeah.
We met initially at church. We both happened to go to the same church, and I've got an interest in photography and an interest in the arts. And you said to me that you're a photographer, and I sort of said, oh, okay, great. That's a big area. What do you do within photography? And you explained it to me, and my brain went blank because if you haven't seen the finished product of what it is that you create, it's kind of, I blend these images together to tell a story. Huh?
Yeah.
That doesn't directly mean anything to me. So just for the sake of people listening who do happen to have their computers handy, where is somewhere that someone could go online right now and see an example of your work?
Look, if they hit storyart.com, they will land on a site that gives them everything that I do and a lot of different visual examples of what it is that I do. So go on to storyart.com and then you'll be able to see. And it is like that. It's like any time anyone asks me, what do I do? I kind of give up trying to explain it, get my phone out, and I have to show them the images.
Yes. And now, if you're driving the car, please don't look up the website right now. But under any other circumstances, do yourself a favor. If you have access to a computer right now, do yourself a favor and go to storyart.com and have a look, and you'll understand why this kind of art is kind of difficult to explain. Now, I do want to talk about the Heart Project in just a minute, because really that was how I really discovered what it is that you do. That was where I went from, Karen does this interesting thing that I'm not quite sure about, to holy crap, this is amazing. But I want to get there in just a minute. I want to stay focused on the business side of things for just a moment. Can you just have a little bit of a brag? Who are some of the clients? Who are some of the people that at a commercial level are paying you for your work? And what is some of the international reach that you've had in terms of awards, teaching, these sorts of things?
Wow. Okay. Well, I have done a lot of work for a lot of imaging companies, and I work really closely with them. I have quite a few ambassadorships with different ones as well. So you're talking about Nikon and Adobe, Wacom, although people pronounce it Wacom, but it's actually Wacom. So that's the digital graphics tablet for anyone that doesn't know. Epson. So there's stacks of those kind of companies that I work very, very closely with, not just doing work, but also educating for them and teaching on their behalf. I speak around the world, which is very tough right now during the COVID situation. I was meant to be in Los Angeles pretty much now for Adobe Max, needing to do that online this year. But yeah, I've just had so many opportunities to be able to create and to also speak. I've created work, if you're ever in Melbourne at the Pullman Hotel, there's some massive wall murals in there that I created. So yeah, lots of different incredible projects. I think the first real opportunity that I got given was soon after I started winning these awards and creating this work. I got asked to be a teacher on a program called Creative Live, and Creative Live is an online website, classroom sort of situation where people can go online, they can choose different subjects and they can have someone teach them, and it's usually a 2-day, 3-day class. They broadcast live, so I was live in the studio in Seattle teaching about 16,000 people live online how to create an Alice in Wonderland image. I had a rabbit in the studio, an actual rabbit, and it was amazing. And then it was sort of probably even from there that a lot of other opportunities kind of opened up as well. So I'm very thankful for that.
All
Yeah.
right, just to draw a bit of a line under the business, the strictly sort of money side of it, I want to ask a direct question that you're very allowed to give a very abstract answer to.
Mm.
Is it possible to actually, and I'm not asking about your specific circumstances because that's none
Yeah.
of my business, but is it possible in a field as competitive as photography, where a lot of people just say, well, I've got a camera on my phone, why would I pay for a photographer? Or you've got a continuous supply of graduates coming out of art school or photography school using a camera their mum bought them and living in their dad's basement, and you've got to compete with all of these people. Is it possible to actually earn a living to the degree that you could feed a family in that
Yeah.
industry?
Yeah. Yeah, it absolutely is, but I'm not here to say it's easy. There's types of photography that I do think are easier than others. And to be honest, when we were photographing weddings, that was kind of an easy thing because everyone knows they need a wedding photographer. They kind of have an idea of how much they would they would spend on a wedding photographer, and it's not too hard to get people over the line and kind of get a lot of word of mouth marketing from different people. What I do now, it's very niche, so I can charge a lot for what I do because of that, and because of what's required. But at the same time, because it's very niche, and it's like you said before, it's hard to explain what I do, and people don't necessarily know that they want it until they see it. So there's a big need to market it really well. And so a lot of what I do is sharing my work behind the scenes, videos, a lot of videos. Video is a big part of what I do in sharing the story of how I create. And so it's not easy. And I think to be in business and to actually make money as a photographer, a business owner, you need to be creative with the business side of things as well, not just the photography. You can be an awesome photographer, but if you're not creative in the business sense and you don't understand that side of things, it can be very, very difficult to make a living. So That being said, I'm doing better than I ever have before, and certainly going from weddings to story art. I'm now a company. I'm sort of, I guess I'm living the dream in a lot of ways, but it's a lot of hard work along the way. Yeah.
And well done you for getting to that point. I do want to come back to what you just said about getting creative in business, because that's exactly what this podcast is about. But I want to do that close to the end, because you've given me the perfect segue into the Heart Project. And really, I'm going to tell the story of sort of the moment where I went from you being this photographer friend, we chatted, your husband and family had hung out with me and my wife, and our family would had lunch a couple of times. And then all of a sudden this video got played. And you mentioned you do a lot of video. Now, the video was for one of your Heart projects. It was done for a young man by the name of Julian Cadman. Now, I'm going to tell people, if you can, I don't care if you pause the podcast and go to theheartproject.com.au/TV. That'll take you to theheartproject.com.au/TV is the videos page. And on that page, in the first 4 or so videos, you will see a video that has Julian Cadman named there in the video. Now, play that video and watch it. And if by the end of that video you aren't blown away and you have a tear in your eye and your heart is pounding, then go and get yourself medically checked out, because I'm not sure whether you're alive or not. That video was played at church, completely unexpected. I was just at church. I was actually in the parents' room looking after my son, who was very young at the time. And then that video came on the screens, and I just started watching it because, hey, there's something a bit more interesting than the usual. And then it was this video. And I was utterly I have not been impacted by a piece of art in that way. And this video really is a piece of art. It's about how you made a piece of art, but the video itself is a piece of art in its own right. So enough from me. Can you tell us about the Heart Project? Tell us about Julian Cadman and that project in particular, because I think it really does capture the essence of what this is all about.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the Heart Project is all about helping families and people that have challenges, and we've found a way to do that through photographic art. And for Julian, Julian Cadman passed away in the Barcelona terror attacks, and just a young boy, and his mum reached out to me, and I didn't know when she first reached out to me via email who she was or what the situation was. She simply asked me if I could create an image of multiple photos that she had of her son in superhero outfits. I didn't know that Julian had passed away. I didn't know anything, but it sort of triggered something for me I think I need to check and do a bit of Google searching to kind of find out. And then I found her story and found out that he was one of the victims of the Barcelona terror attacks, and that she'd been holding his hand just outside a toy store, and that he'd just been ripped away from her. She'd got run over as well. She was in a coma for a long time, and it's just absolutely, obviously, just devastating. So as soon as I heard all of this and I found out, I just knew I had to do something to help her, to grieve, to help her to bring some hope for, she wanted to share Julian's story in such a way that it encouraged others. They're going through so much, but she wanted to share that. So she sent me all the photos, and I got to work creating this Avengers poster to really honour Julian's memory. And then I took it up to her in Sydney, and we delivered it in person. And yeah, just to be able to do that and to help through just a piece of art. But it's not just that. I think it's the connection and everything else. Yeah, just being there and to, she knows that I'm there for her now. And I think that's the same with all of the families that we've helped with the Heart Project. They're part of a community now. They've got some support from people that really care. So yeah, that's just
I'm gonna say it one more time for anyone that hasn't gone to the website yet. Go to theheartproject.com.au/TV. It's the Julian Cadman video that you'll see there. Now, Julian, of course, as you say, isn't the only person that you've done this for, and his family isn't the only family that you've helped. I think he epitomizes what you do. But there is now this community, this sort of group of families that have that connection with each other, actually through you, because of what you've done for each of them. Tell me a little bit about the impact that you've seen some of your projects have, just in terms of that healing and the grieving process, because those families really let you in, and you do get to see a lot of that.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I have to bring us back, I think, to the very first Heart Project and how it all started, because I initially got an email from someone, her name was Jackie, and she reached out to me because she'd been seeing all of my creative work, and she wanted to find out if I could create something of her daughter, Talia. Now, Talia at the time was 5, and she can't walk, she can't speak, she can't hold herself up. It was at the time more of an unknown disease that she had. They've found out a bit more now, but her mum, as a photographer, had all these amazing photos of Talia, but they were all of her in the chair or lying down, and she thought that there would be a way for me to free Talia from those limitations in a photo. So that was actually the very, very start, and we got Talia into the studio. I photographed her in many, many different angles, and the parents held her up, and I got all different shots of her legs and her arms, and I got the most beautiful smile on her face, and I blended all that together, and I created an image where she's free flying in the sky with butterflies holding her up. Her little dog is down below just watching. She's left the chair, and she's just free. And that image, that they keep telling me, that family keep telling me that that's just the most important thing in their house, and that'd be the first thing that they grabbed, if there was a fire or something. It's just so important. And from that, and this has happened a lot of times, but from that now, Jackie is part of the Heart Project. She's helped run Christmas Wish in the Adelaide Hospital for 3 years running. She's done a number of her own projects for other people, and it's just like this snowball effect of you help someone and then they in turn start helping other people and start using their gifts. It's pretty incredible.
You're doing my job for me. You're making this far too easy, because the Christmas Wish was next. And I really do, because this whole podcast is about people that bring value. And I'm particularly focused on people that have their own businesses, big or small, that bring value financially, in community, and also in ideas. And you tick all three of those boxes. And we're talking about the community side of things here. So can you tell me about the community that has, or what is the Christmas Wish, and what has happened internationally with the Christmas Wish?
Yeah, it's pretty massive, actually, just to think. So 4 years ago, the first time that we ran Christmas Wish, we took a small team into the Monash Children's Hospital. We took Santa with us, the most amazing Santa you'll ever meet. He's the real deal. We set up a green screen studio at the hospital. We had Santa there, we had some props, and we had the children who are stuck in the hospital during the Christmas season. We had them come and have their photo taken, and they had no idea that this was going to be anything more than just a standard Santa photo. And so what happened that day is we took the photos in the morning, and then we went into a back room, and I started editing them all. And I don't know how I did this, but I managed to get through 30 images, creating them, putting them into magical Christmas scenes. And then we printed them and we delivered them that night. Everyone stayed till, I think we were there till 10, 11 at night, even Santa. And we were delivering them to these families, and they were just blown away. They got these beautiful images of their child in this magical Christmas land, that they can treasure. And so, that was the first one that we did. And from there, it was, let's try and we can do this further. We can stretch this beyond just one hospital. And we went into 3 hospitals across Australia the next year, and we grew the team, and then we went into hospitals, more hospitals around Australia, and then we stretched it around the world. So now we sort of manage teams all around the world, team leaders arranged to go in the hospitals, and we have like 100 editors working online during it as well, so that I don't have to do all these images now. So it'd be impossible. We did like 400 images last year, and we were able to deliver these all to these families. So it's an amazing thing.
These editors, in many cases, I don't know about all, but in many cases, these are editors that have actually studied your work and actually learned their craft, at least in part, from you through your education.
Quite a lot, yeah. Quite a lot of them are. But one of the other things that we do is that I have a full training set up for these editors and for everyone that is involved in Christmas Wish, so that they can actually, they can learn what needs to be done. And so then the ones that are just starting out, then they're not as fearful. They know they're going to get helped along the way, and it's a great learning opportunity for them to really push themselves. So, and last year too, we also ran workshops in every state in Australia, thanks to Nikon who supported that and sponsored that. And so I was able to actually in person teach a whole lot of people what we do with Christmas Wish and how to do it. And so it's not just for Christmas Wish, but they might take those skills into another avenue and do that within their own circles. Yeah.
All right, I want to move on, but also move back a little bit, and just kind of taking stock of the whole spectrum of what we've covered, the career that you've had, the pivots that you've made along the way to end up where you are, the incredible success that you are enjoying, and the respect and admiration that you've earned from the industry around the world. Taking stock of all of that, is there something that stands out to you along the way as a decision that you've made, or something about yourself that you disciplined yourself to do, or an attitude that you chose to take with you? Is there something that you believe contributed very significantly to what you've achieved?
That's a really good question. There's probably quite a few different things, but I think one of the things that I've always done along the way is to make sure that what I'm doing is bringing joy, not to myself, but to others as well. To be doing things that sometimes you have to do the hard stuff that you don't really like, but
Sure.
even in that as quick as I can to be able to even outsource things like that aren't actually bringing me joy, like the accounting or the cleaning or whatever it might be.
Does that bring anybody joy?
I don't know.
I don't know.
The accountant, maybe.
If we were all Marie Kondo acolytes, there would be no accountants because it does not bring anybody joy. Anyway, sorry.
But it's in just being able to, I mean, if you're running a business, the whole reason you run a business and you don't work for someone else is to be able to kind of really do what you want to do. And so that, even for the work that I do with the Heart Project, the volunteer work, anything that I do that's volunteer, I also make sure that I see that as it's important, it's more important, probably, I know it is, but as important as if I'm getting paid. So I'm not treating anything that I'm doing as second rate, that I put my all into everything that I do. Yeah.
All right, let me flip that question on its head. Is there something that you look back on and go, you know what, that was the wrong direction. I went off in the wrong direction. I did something that kind of damaged me. I had to then recover from. I took a backward step. Is there something along the way that you view as a mistake in some way?
Most of the things that I've done, I can see the positives from, even if I might change them in the past, because I've learned from them. But there's probably a few examples. So one is I decided that in those early years of going from, okay, I can't do wedding photography, what else can I do with young kids? Let's try newborn photography. And I had put a lot of money into setting up for that. I bought a lot of props. I did a lot of training. And 6 months down the track, I realized this is not me. I cannot continue. I can't do this kind of work. It was just everything about it. I think the monotony of the same thing. It just wasn't me. I have full respect for people that do that, but I can't. So it's, but in that, maybe I wasted some time, but I learn a lot about myself, and I learn a lot about what I don't want to be doing. And I think that's an important lesson. So, and I think even going back further, the same thing. In my earlier years, I volunteered a lot on a lot of things, with church, with running a whole lot of different things like ranges and kids things. And I wouldn't change all of that for the world. Like, that was a really important time. But from a business perspective, I didn't have enough time for my business. So it was pretty stagnant for a while because of that. But, as I said, I wouldn't change it. I think it's just you have seasons and you work out balances as you go, and things change along the way.
Well, speaking of kind of balance, you've got a family, you've got a husband, you've got two wonderful children. I've met your whole family. You've had me at your house for dinner, and a wonderful dinner it was. But how do you, given your husband also works, so you're both working. You've got two young children at a time in their lives when they want their mum and their dad, and they want to have family. But you're not only working and earning a living, but you're also actually then traveling, training, pre-COVID, obviously, doing the various things that you've talked about. How have you kind of balanced all of that? Are there some conscious decisions that you've made, or have you just managed to sort of fall into or find a way that works?
No, there's definitely conscious decisions, and it's a tough balance. I think when I started doing the story art work, I wasn't expecting as much travel. I was kind of choosing to do it because of family balance, and so as things opened up, I had more opportunities. I had more opportunity to travel. Some hard decisions had to be made, but we've had great opportunities to take the kids to a lot of these things, to travel with them. And so, the times where I have to go by myself and leave them for maybe 2 weeks, that's really hard. But I do know that Stuart's so supportive. He's there for them. He's he works at the school they go to. So in terms of life balance and routine, everything's pretty much the same as when I'm here. So that's a plus, I suppose. But I know I do have to have those boundaries, and I do say no to quite a few things too, because it would be just too much time away from them. Christmas wish I was gone for 3 weeks pretty much straight. and it's at Christmas time, and I'm traveling around the country with Santa, and that's kind of cool, but my kids are at home. And the year previously I was in Auckland with Santa again for Christmas wish, and Jazzy, my daughter, she ended up in hospital with asthma. And so that was tough because she's back in hospital and I'm, in another country and other hospitals with other kids. Yeah.
Oh, no. Oh, dear. Yeah. I want to talk for a moment about COVID. This is not, to me, COVID is one of those things. It's going to pass. Life will get back to some version of normal that probably won't be radically different to the version that we had before, probably just with a bit more hand washing and that sort of thing. So I don't want to spend too much time on it. However, I do think that all the shutdowns, and Melbourne is back into a hard shutdown now. We are in the harshest lockdown that we've seen anywhere in Australia, and among the harshest that have actually happened anywhere in the world as a result of this whole COVID thing. Now, that's a really interesting opportunity from my point of view to learn from business people. How do you pivot in a moment like this? How does this impact your business? I presume it impacts more the actual photography than it does the Photoshop and that sort of thing. So what are the changes that you've had to make or that you've made in response to COVID and the lockdown that we've got?
Well, it's absolutely had an impact on what I can photograph, but because I was already teaching online and had established that, I was able to kick that up a few notches. And obviously I've been doing a lot of that, and at times it's draining because then you're kind of losing that other creativity that I would be doing. So I've sort of had a little bit of a break over the last few weeks to just do some creative work and not be teaching and not be, you got to have breaks and know how you're feeling about things. But one of the awesome things that has come out of this is that I've really had to improve on the whole live streaming thing, and I've taken it to a point where now I'm teaching it. So I've gone from, I'm just using Zoom or whatever else to teach. I'm doing live Photoshop. Now I'm teaching people how to set up cameras, how to set up professional live streams, how to use multicams. I'm assisting and consulting on that, and it's kind of like not even part of my business model, but for this period of time it's
become, yes.
So it's been a really interesting time, and I think that the really important thing through all of this for anyone running a business is we might be stopped from doing certain things, but we always have to be front of mind, and we always have to be, I think we need to be there to help as many people as possible. The first thing I did when the first lot of lockdowns happened was to contact all of my sponsors and find out from them, what can I do to help you guys? What can I do? Can I help run some live streams? Can I help you guys run some live streams? And so from that, there's been great opportunity. One of the things that came out of it too, and this is a little bit tech geeky, but there was a real rush on the device that you need to connect a mirrorless or a DSLR to a computer to make it live stream.
Right.
So the adapter that you need, the USB camera adapter to make it a webcam, you couldn't get anywhere. So I started in talks with a company that does live streaming, and they have a software system called Ecamm Live, and said, look, is there a way you can make the cameras, in particular the Nikon camera, work just via USB as a webcam?
Yeah, right.
And we went back and forth.
Which is not what they're designed for.
No, it's not, but it was possible. I knew it was possible. And so we did a little bit of work back and forth, and then they were able to get it working, and then they were able to get all the other cameras working. And so from that, everyone's able to use their cameras via USB without that. So that was pretty awesome to be able to have a hand in that side of things. Yeah.
Well, Karen, this has been just an absolute thrill. I've loved talking to you, and I think you tick all the boxes in terms of creating value and bringing value. You're an artist who is actually, genuinely able to pay their bills out of their art, and that is a pretty unique thing to begin with. But also,
Mm,
if you talk to any artist, and especially the artistes of the world, they will all tell you that they're having an impact, they're making a difference, they're changing the world. But I think if you look at your body of work and you look at the way that people are responding to it, it tells you very clearly that you really actually are. You really are making a difference, and you are very much building communities around your work and helping people at the same time. And sharing your ideas with us was fantastic. But then to actually find out not only that, but now you've been involved in innovative software that has reduced the hardware dependencies that existed before you came along and helped. Well, you are the triple threat. You've ticked all the boxes. But before we wind up, I do just want to give you one last kind of shot at sharing a bit more wisdom with us. Let's say there is a young version of yourself, and not necessarily in photography, but definitely someone who wants to be in the arts,
mm,
to be able to earn a living, not be the starving artist, but to actually be able to get to the point through hard work and dedication and focus and niching and everything else, get to the
mm.
point where they can turn a profit and feed a family, but also make a difference in people's lives. Is there some advice? Is there a thought that you would pass on to them that might hold them in good stead as they go on that journey?
I think that really important that you value yourself, that you value your work, and to be able to do both of those things, you almost need to separate in some ways the work side of things and the helping. I think
Mm,
one of the things that I find is important. So when it's work, when it's story art, when I need to get paid for what I'm worth, then I need to make sure that I'm charging my worth,
mm,
and that income then actually gives me a little bit of a buffer then to be able to
right.
say, well, I want to go out and help this person, and I don't need to earn anything from that. Because if you start to try and want to earn from your charity work, or it just doesn't feel right. It doesn't
Mm,
really work.
mm,
So to be able to do really well, to value yourself, you got to start that from the very start.
mm.
Um, I think one of the risks is that people start out and they charge very, very little for their work, and then they find it very, very hard to actually charge what they're worth later on. So one of the
Yes.
things that I share quite often with my masterclass students is, figure out how long would it take you to create this when you're really good at it. Okay, what's it worth based on that? What's your time worth?
Mm,
Now, charge that, but don't charge people the extra time it takes you to figure it all out. Charge what it
right.
should be worth later when you're
Once
good at
you're
it.
fast, once you're good at it. Yeah, that's a good way to
Yeah,
approach that. I've not
yeah.
heard that one before. That's actually very clever. Well, Karen, thank you so much. I'm really grateful. I'm blown away. I rewatched that Julian Cadman video before we started this podcast.
Yeah.
I had to pull myself together again in preparation for the podcast. And so
Yeah.
if you're listening and you haven't been yet to theheartproject.com and had a look at the videos there, or the work there, it's amazing. How can people find you if they wanted to follow you, if they're interested in, for example, your education side of things or other
Yep.
things? How would people find you and follow you?
Yeah, well, the storyart.com will take them to most places. And really, if you just Google story art, you'll come up on a bunch of different things there. Story Art Australia is my Instagram handle. Find me on Facebook as well. So they're probably the best spaces to find me on.
Well, Karen, thank you so much for coming and joining me in episode 2 of Living Value.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for listening to episode 2 of Living Value. I hope you've enjoyed this as much as I have, and that you're inspired and encouraged by the people that we've met so far in this series. If you're getting value from this podcast, then please consider going to topherfield.locals.com and becoming one of my supporters. It's only thanks to my supporters that I can spend the time creating this podcast, as well as the content on my Facebook page and the videos that I create. So please consider supporting this podcast. And in any case, I hope you'll join me for episode 3 of Living Value.